Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This was a couple of years later, 1984. Harrison Ford, of course, returned into the role, capitalizing on the success they'd had with Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it made a lot of money at the box office, a lot of money. So, of course, they're going to do more of them. So this one takes the action over to India. Eventually, we start in Hong Kong or somewhere like that. With Lao She, great opening.
Really great opening.
But most of it takes the action over to India, and it kind of stays there, doesn't it? We don't go to as many places in this one. Overall, this one is probably, of the original three, it's the one that's not liked as much. Those that love it, they really love it, of course. We're probably in that category. I love it. But I've found, talking to people over the years, Temple of Doom is the one it's not everybody's favourite. Partly because the next installment is again so strong. We'll go into that when we talk about it. But you got Spielberg returning as director, John Williams back doing the score, George Lucas is involved, executive producer, and writing the story and whatnot. I think, check me if I'm wrong, but this takes place a couple of years before Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1935. So Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is actually a prequel.
It is a prequel. Yeah, it's definitely a prequel. They one of the big reasons is they wanted to not do Nazis again, which is probably a bad decision.
Yeah, because they came back and they did Nazis again.
Exactly. So that was one of the reasons, and they wanted to explore the past a bit. So yeah, they went with a prequel. There was a lot of initial criticism of the film when it first came out, saying it didn't meet up, and there's criticisms about what the kind of themes of the film as well. It's the appreciation has grown over the years, but it still is certainly one of the kind of the weakest of the bunch. But that's not to say it's a bad film at all.
To be honest, it's the one I probably watched the most as a kid, because by the time that came on TV, I would have recorded it, videotaped it off telly. And I probably watched that the most for some reason. Maybe didn't have Raiders for some reason on tape for a while. Got it later on. And ended up watching the Temple of Doom more. To go to from the start, that whole bit at Lao She at the start, Lao She's nightclub, is brilliant. You got the opening with a musical number, Kate Capshaw singing in Chinese, one of the Chinese languages, singing Anything Goes. And it's really well worked out, almost Busby Berkeley style number with all the dancers and everything and the cinematography to go with it. Kind of a strange opening. As a kid, I used to think, what's this? Bloody singing and dancing. But you'll obviously learn to love it.
It's very 50s Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And she was great as that. I thought, just a lot of people criticize her for the film because her character is quite annoying. But I seen just the other day somebody posted something saying, she's supposed to be annoying, so she actually did it well, and that's so true. But she's very, very good at that singing and dancing number, and selling herself as the kind of shallow it girl that's almost a gangster's mole. She's Lao She's mole, isn't she? And she gets caught up with Indy. But again, great tension. Within 5 minutes, he's been poisoned. The poison you just drank, Dr. Jones.
What's this for?
Great bad guys.
Yeah.
The way that they get those guys laugh, and Spielberg does this a lot, I've found as well. He was really good at reminding us that these evil characters, these sort of pantomime bad guys, have got a great laugh, and they laugh at the most sick stuff.
The poison you just drank, Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but it's like they're actually laughing because they've just poisoned you. How sick is that? They're laughing about it. These guys are serious. Like,
it gives the villains, and Spielberg is great at this, is giving the villains motifs and calls that make you go, okay, that's the bad guy. You get it. Really simple things.
Makes you hate them all the more.
Yeah, it turns them into characters that you want to hate.
So when he gets the kebab skew and he throws it into the guy's chest, you're just like, get some of that. Laugh at that. But great set piece there. Lots of action. I think one guy gets a cymbal in the face. He takes a cymbal off a drum kit and throws it like a frisbee, and it hits him right in the face. the action in these films is always top notch in it. He
It is.
obviously chops the gong down. He's running behind the gong and it's getting Tommy gun. Bah, 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 bah. That's just like super cool stuff. And then they manage to escape just about in the nick of time, gets the antidote, and then we meet Shorty. His getaway driver is Shorty. He's got boxes strapped to his trainers or his sneakers so he can drive the car. Ki Kwan in the role of a lifetime. I know he's just won an Oscar for everything everywhere all at once, but you know, he's always going to be Shorty to me. You know,
what an amazing experience for him, and he really grasps the opportunity and enjoys it, doesn't he? And he's so much fun in this film, and really gives it everything. And
as a child actor, he had bags of charisma, loads of character. I think actually, I remember watching one of these documentaries, making of documentaries, and Spielberg was saying that his younger brother, was actually being cast, trying out for the casting for the role, and Ki Kwan was with him, and he was so funny telling his brother, "Don't do this, do that instead," and correcting him like a big brother would. That he was so good at that, they just sort of turned their focus to him. And they said, "Actually, we're gonna
have you." Yeah,
and
what a great choice.
He was, though. He was. He's brilliant. All that stuff when they're playing cards. You cheat, Dr. Jones. And it's great stuff. I've seen some cynical people saying they thought he was annoying as well, and this is another reason people don't like it as much, because Kate Capshaw and Shorty are annoying, but they're great in it. I think there's stronger elements of a film, and it's more the writing is a little bit weaker with this one, because after they leave Hong Kong on the plane, you know, he shuts the door and you see it's Lao She's plane. You think, oh, damn. You know, he's in trouble here. And the pilots jump out and leave him. So actually where they end up in India is by chance. So this is not like the first film where he's actually been assigned the mission by spooks in the government or anything. This is like he just happened to land here. They jump out of the plane on that inflatable raft and end up sliding down the mountain into the river. And they literally come straight to the feet of this holy man who's from the village. And he's like, "You have been sent to us from God." So there's that whole element of, you know, mysticism going on there. And then we get to the village. They're all poor. And there's no children. The children have been taken away. And we later find out the children have been forced into slavery down this mine. So, you know, and that's why they've got Shorty in there as well. Because, you know, again, it's that whole thing with these movies are for kids. Not for you, 36 years old, sitting there complaining it's not as good as the first one.
For 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it is. It's for little boys, really.
But yeah, this is the point in the film. So I think you have the great opening, and we get to this point, and then now we are Mystic Man. We're in India. We're in this strange area. And I think this is where the film turns, and this is probably where it gets the most criticism, and people probably don't gel with it as much because it is very different, I think, at this point. And this is where we get into the darker elements, as you say. Child slavery is a key theme. Black magic. Human sacrifice and stuff.
Yeah,
and I think these are the elements because this film's much darker than the other films.
Yeah, and Spielberg wanted it to be.
Yeah,
he actually he says, I think, on one of them that he wanted it to be a lot darker, but years later he kind of regretted that decision. But to be honest, it stands for me.
It works because like Empire is the darker middle film. I think that works in trilogies where the middle film gets a bit deeper and darker. Yeah, it's slightly weird here because it's a prequel, but I think it works thematically. But these very reasons are why some of the criticisms that it received at the time. And actually, we were talking about ratings earlier. This film is exactly why PG-13 was created in the United States. It's different across here. We had 12A much later with Spider-Man in 2002. Yeah. But PG-13 was created in America just a couple of months after this film, because of this film and Gremlins as well, which is obviously very violent in places with microwaving gremlins and stuff. And it was Spielberg as one of the ones who petitioned the MPAA to create a 12A certificate between PG and 15. obviously knowing, oh yeah, it's a bit more violent, but it's still kid friendly. So it's an interesting kind of watershed moment with this film as well, in terms of, okay, it's still got those darker elements. It's for older children.
Yeah. It's quite a scary character, that guy as well, the high priest guy, who's ripping people's hearts out of their chests and stuff before he puts them in a volcano in a cage. I think that's great, though.
It is.
But again, like Raiders Lost Ark, I will have seen this when it came to TV.
Yeah.
I was far too young to see that in the cinema. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, yeah, it's got its problems. And I find the problems with it, though, are just not as quite as good a writing, not quite as good a effects. They're kind of production problems for me that I thought were not quite up to the standard, but it didn't stop me enjoying it because they are based on these old serials, as we mentioned earlier, and some of them would be better than others. Some of them would be a little bit cheaper. They'd recycle shots and stuff like this. And
absolutely. I mean, to me, it's like, it's just the weakest of the three. That's all it is to me. It's like, it's still enjoyable.
I always wonder what happened to Shorty afterwards, and I was hoping they were going to bring him into this new film that's coming soon, but it doesn't look like he is in it, unfortunately. But
he moved to America.
I know that whole thing he was going to say, Indy's going to take me to America. He says that in it somewhere, but
he went to America and became Data, didn't he?
There's a few callbacks where those two guys with the swords jump out on him and do their, and he goes for his gun and it's not there.
Not there.
So he has to fight them. And that's kind of cool. That's like them saying, let's do a callback to that, but this time he has to actually do what we were going to do, which was sword fight versus the whip, I think was the idea behind that fight. So we get to see it. That brilliant ending on the bridge, I think that's a brilliant ending. And the whole thing, he talks to Shorty in Mandarin or whatever it is, and he says, "Hold on, lady, we're going for a ride." and that actual practical effects of all those dummies falling off. I seen one thing that said that the dummies were actually animatronic mannequins, so they actually had some movement in them when they fell that made them look more real. So
pretty cool,
that is pretty cool. Fell to a sort of dicey death with the crocodiles. But I love it. I mean, the mine train, how can we not mention the mine train chase as well? Of course. That's a great set piece.
And the thing is with these things, like the mine scene chase and some of the other set pieces we've talked about, it's how many of these have been redone now across cinema, and games and TV. Like, they're so memorable and well done that it's like, oh, we're going to nick that one from Indy.
Well, even at the time, you had films like King Solomon's Mines, the Alan Quatermain thing. Sharon Stone in that, I think, and that was directly influenced by Indiana Jones. The only reason that film got greenlit was because of the success of Indiana Jones. So even back in the day, it was influencing everything that was around it. Like, you had loads of space movies after Star Wars. It was the same with this. You had, like I say, Romance in the Stone was another one with Michael Douglas. Similar, similar enough that it was like guy with a fedora in the jungle with with his girlfriend trying to find some sort of rare artifact. And it's all Indiana Jones influenced. So, that was it though. 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Still did quite well at the box office because people wanted to see it. As you say, people weren't quite as crazy about it as they were the first one. Whatever, we still love it. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on Patreon. All links below.